The biting Chicago wind of late 1985 did little to cool the fire that was beginning to burn within Michael Jordan. At 22, he was already a phenomenon, the NBA's Rookie of the Year, a gravity-defying artist who was single-handedly revitalizing the Chicago Bulls. His name was on the lips of every sports fan in the city. His face was beginning to flash across television screens nationwide. Yet, as he pushed open the heavy oak door of Harrison Pierce Bespoke Tailors on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, he was not an icon. He was just a young black man in a gray Bulls tracksuit and a pair of the very first Air Jordans, looking to buy his first truly world-class suit. Harrison Pierce was a relic of old-world Chicago, a sanctuary of quiet wealth and established power. The air inside was thick with the scent of cedar, aged leather, and old money. Sunlight struggled to pierce the tinted windows, illuminating dust motes dancing over deep mahogany tables where bolts of the world's finest fabrics, cashmere, vicuña, and silkware laid out like ancient scrolls. The silence was orchestral, broken only by the soft snip-snip of a tailor's shears from a back room. It was a place designed to make one feel either perfectly at home or hopelessly out of place. Jordan, accustomed to the roar of stadiums, felt the oppressive quiet immediately. He gave a polite nod to the junior associate at the front, who seemed too intimidated to speak, and began to browse. He ran his long, athletic fingers over a bolt of charcoal wool with a pinstripe so subtle it was more a feeling than a sight. He envisioned himself wearing it at the next team gala, standing a little taller, feeling the part of the professional he was becoming. He wasn't just a player. He was the cornerstone of a franchise, and he wanted to look like it. From a dimly lit office at the rear of the showroom, the store manager, a man named Arthur Abernathy, watched Jordan's arrival. Abernathy was a man tailored to his environment, tall, slender, with silver hair swept back from his temples and a perpetual look of faint disapproval. His own suit, a crisp navy double-breasted, fit him like a second skin, a testament to the quality he peddled and the rigid standards he upheld. He saw not a rising star, but a kid in sportswear, an intrusion into his hallowed space. He saw a pair of garish red and black sneakers on his Persian rug, and his lip curled almost imperceptibly. After allowing Jordan to wander for a few minutes, long enough to feel the full weight of the store's opulence, Abernathy emerged from his office. He glided across the floor, his hard-soled English shoes making no sound on the thick carpet. "May I help you?" Abernathy asked. The words were polite, but the tone was a cold iron gate. It was the kind of question that didn't offer help but demanded justification. Jordan turned, a friendly smile on his face. "Yeah, actually," he said, his voice earnest and warm. "I'm looking to get a suit made, something special. I like this material." He gestured toward the charcoal wool. Abernathy's eyes performed a slow, deliberate inventory of Jordan's appearance. He took in the cotton tracksuit, the gold chain that was a little too bright for his taste, and the now famous sneakers. His gaze was like that of a biologist classifying a new and unwelcome species. He did not see the explosive power, the unquenchable will to win that was redefining his sport. He saw only a young man who, in his narrow worldview, had clearly wandered into the wrong store. A small, condescending smile touched Abernathy's lips. "Sir," he began, his voice dripping with a patronizing sweetness that was far more insulting than outright hostility. "Perhaps you are not familiar with Harrison Pierce. We are a bespoke house. Our garments are not simply bought. They are commissioned." Jordan's smile faltered slightly, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "I understand that. I want to get measured, pick a fabric. I want a custom suit." Abernathy let out a soft, airy chuckle, a sound of pure dismissal. He leaned in conspiratorially, as if sharing a gentle but necessary truth. "Let me be a bit clearer. The starting price for a two-piece suit from our junior tailors is over $3,000. The fabric you're admiring would put the final commission well over $5,000. He paused, letting the numbers hang in the air like a foul odor. "I am quite certain that is significantly beyond your means." The words struck Jordan with a physical force. It wasn't just the assumption that he was broke. It was the smug certainty, the casual cruelty in Abernathy's eyes. In that moment, he wasn't Michael Jordan, the phenom. He was just another black kid being told he didn't belong. The warmth drained from his face, replaced by a cold, hard mask. The fire he carried onto the court, the competitive inferno that drove him to dominate, began to smolder in a different way. It was a quiet, dangerous burn. Abernathy, mistaking Jordan's silence for acquiescence and embarrassment, pressed his advantage. "There are many fine department stores on Michigan Avenue," he continued, waving a dismissive hand. "I'm sure you could find something perfectly adequate for your needs there." Adequate. The word echoed in the silent showroom. Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply held Abernathy's gaze. For a long, stretched-out second, the only sound was the distant snip-snip of the shears. In Jordan's eyes, Abernathy saw not the shame he expected, but something else entirely. He saw a focus, an intensity so profound it was unsettling. It was the look of a predator memorizing its prey. Without another word, Jordan turned and walked out of the store. The heavy oak door clicked shut behind him, leaving Abernathy cloaked in his own smug satisfaction. He had, in his mind, protected the sanctity of his establishment. He had put a presumptuous youth in his place. He straightened his tie, smoothed the lapels of his jacket, and promptly forgot the entire encounter. Michael Jordan did not forget. That insult became a silent partner in everything he did. It was with him during the grueling Breakfast Club workouts, where he and his teammates pushed their bodies to the breaking point before the sun even rose over Lake Michigan. It was a ghost in the film room, as he studied opponents with a monk-like focus. It was a whisper in his ear during every clutch free throw, every gravity-defying dunk, every last-second shot that ripped the heart out of an opposing team. Every contract he signed, every endorsement deal that made his face one of the most recognizable on the planet, every award he collected, it all became fuel. He wasn't just playing for championships anymore. He was playing for a level of success so undeniable, so monumental, that no one, anywhere, could ever question if he belonged. The memory of Abernathy's sneer was a whetstone against which he sharpened his ambition. He bought suits, of course, from other tailors in Chicago, New York, and London. They were fine garments, but they were just placeholders. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he would one day return to Harrison Pierce. 6 years passed. 6 years of blood, sweat, and glory. Michael Jordan was no longer a rising star. He was a supernova. He was a champion, having led the Bulls to their first NBA title in 1991. He was an MVP, a global brand, a cultural icon whose influence transcended sport. He was, by any measure, one of the most famous and successful men in the world. On a crisp autumn afternoon in 1992, a long black Mercedes-Benz S-Class pulled up to the curb outside Harrison Pierce. The driver opened the rear door, and out stepped Michael Jordan. He was not wearing a tracksuit. He was clad in an immaculate Italian suit that fit his athletic frame to perfection. On his feet were gleaming leather shoes that cost more than a month's rent in most parts of the city. He was flanked by his trusted business manager and a quiet, imposing man who served as his security. He pushed open the same heavy oak door. The store was unchanged, the same scent of cedar and leather, the same oppressive quiet. But this time, the quiet was for him. The junior associates froze, their eyes wide with disbelief. And behind the main counter, looking older and a bit more frayed, stood Arthur Abernathy. He saw the expensive car, the powerful entourage, and the exquisitely dressed man at the center of it all. His professional instincts kicked in immediately. This was a whale. He scurried forward, his face stretched into a welcoming, obsequious grin. "Good afternoon, sir. A pleasure to welcome you to Harrison Pierce," Abernathy chirped, his voice several octaves higher than the one he had used 6 years prior. "My name is Arthur Abernathy, the manager. How may I be of service to you today?" Jordan let the question hang in the air. He swept his gaze around the showroom. a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. He looked at the bolts of fabric, the mannequins dressed in silent judgment. Then his eyes settled on Abernathy. He held the manager's gaze, letting the man search his memory. "I've been here before," Jordan said, his voice low and even, yet it boomed in the silent room. Abernathy's smile twitched. "Oh, I have an excellent memory for our clients, sir. I'm sure I would remember." His voice trailed off as he looked, really looked, at the face of the man in front of him. The world-famous face, the face of Chicago. The gears in his mind began to grind, first with confusion, then with a dawning, sickening horror. He remembered a tall kid in a tracksuit. He remembered the sneakers. He remembered his own cruel, dismissive words. The blood drained from Abernathy's face. His professional smile dissolved into a mask of slack-jawed panic. You're, he stammered, his voice a dry whisper. "You told me I couldn't afford it," Jordan said, not with anger, but with a calm, surgical precision. "You suggested I try a department store." Abernathy began to sputter. "Mr. Jordan, I had no idea. It was a misunderstanding. Please, my sincerest apologies." Jordan held up a hand, and the manager's apology died in his throat. He turned his back on Abernathy, a gesture of complete and total dismissal. He began to walk slowly through the showroom, his business manager taking notes on a small pad. He pointed to a mannequin dressed in a stunning Glen plaid suit. "I'll take this one," he said. He walked to a table and tapped a bolt of deep navy cashmere. "Make me 2 suits out of this, double-breasted." He moved to the next display. "That tuxedo, and the dinner jacket next to it." He never asked for a single price. He didn't need to. This wasn't a transaction. It was a statement. With every selection, the color drained further from Abernathy's face. He was watching his entire professional life unravel. The junior associates stood like statues, witnessing a quiet execution. After selecting 7 complete outfits, Jordan turned back. He looked past the shell-shocked Abernathy to one of the younger tailors who had been watching from the back room, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "You," Jordan said, pointing directly at the young man, "you'll be handling my fitting. I'll need everything by the end of next week." He had not only bought out a significant portion of the store's top-tier inventory, but he had also stripped the manager of his authority in front of his own staff, rendering him utterly irrelevant. Jordan's business manager stepped forward and presented a black American Express card. The transaction was silent and swift. As the receipt printed, Jordan looked at Abernathy one last time. There was no triumph in his eyes, no gloating. There was only a quiet finality. He had closed the loop. As Jordan and his entourage swept out of the store, leaving a vacuum of stunned silence in their wake, Abernathy finally crumbled. He leaned against a display case, his perfectly tailored suit suddenly looking like a cheap costume. The owner of Harrison Pierce, a man who golfed with the city's elite, heard the story within the hour. He was apoplectic not at the massive sale, but at the monumental foolishness of his manager. Insulting a local hero, a global icon, was a sin far greater than any professional misstep. Abernathy was fired before the end of the day. The story, as such stories do, took on a life of its own. It became a piece of the Jordan legend, a testament not just to his talent on the court, but to the fierce, unyielding pride that fueled him. The suits themselves were almost an afterthought. Jordan gave several of them away to community leaders and promising students from his charitable foundation. The point was never the wool or the silk. The point was the act. It was about rewriting a painful memory and turning a moment of private humiliation into a public lesson on the danger of underestimation. It was a quiet, elegant, and devastatingly effective reminder that a man's worth is not measured by the clothes he wears into a room, but by the character and determination he carries within him. For Michael Jordan, it was the most satisfying victory he had ever won without setting foot on a basketball court.